Hello students, it's Dr. Menchaca Banulo. Um, so this week we're doing things a little bit differently. This week your assignment is to read Plessy v. Ferguson, the excerpts of it in your book, to watch this video and two super short videos about Plessy. I think one's 4 minutes and one's 3 minutes. And then to turn your attention primarily to writing me the first draft of your paper for the term. Now, I am grading the first drafts. I'm not going to grade them as I would grade a final draft. But what I'm trying to communicate to you is you want to take the first draft as seriously as you would take a midterm. You have the whole week to concentrate on it. I still expect you to look at Plessy because we'll be building on Plessy throughout the semester. But you don't have to do any in the news assignment or any forum talk. And really just concentrate on your papers. The topics look amazing. The ones you chose are really strong. And I'm excited about reading them, but please do put effort into the first draft. And please also be extremely conscientious about citation. If something does not come from from your own brain, even if it's something you just are paraphrasing, you need to find a way to cite it. If it's something that you know, just because you're a knowledgeable person, like let's say you know that Plessy it had something to do with kind of like a created case, you know, the way we have these trial balloon cases. Okay, that's good that you know that, but find a resource that backs that up. It just makes for a much more professional paper. And that's the kind of thing that you're really supposed to walk away with this class from because it's upper division writing intensive. Also, don't plagiarize. I doubt you will. I know you won't, but it seems you always have each semester one student who does. And I'd love it if this semester we had no students who do. So just if you have a question or you're having difficulty with sources, just come to me. Okay, now that those preliminaries are out of the way, I will briefly talk to you about Plessy. So again, you might be asking the question, Dr. Menchaca Banulo, why are you making us read a Supreme Court case? The reason that I'm having you read this case is, on the one hand, it's historically extremely important. This is kind of the beginning of what we come to know as racial segregation in the 20th century. But also from a perspective of political philosophy, it's important because what you see is this kind of maneuvering on the part of the states, the state governments, to find a way to kind of reaffirm racial inequality in ways that get around the fact that slavery is no longer permitted. So we talked earlier in the semester about how with the end of slavery, we had more of a labor movement. We had more questions about the rights of laborers and fair wages and things like that. In part because now we didn't have free labor, which was good. But we hadn't grappled with those questions about distribution that, you know, we would have otherwise. In this case that we're looking at, you see another area of social and political transition. People are really interested in preserving the mores. Okay, so the labor questions about economics, this type of thing in a lot of ways is about mores. Okay, and if you took the class American Political Thought 1 with me, you studied Montesquieu, mores just mean the customs, the culture, the beliefs, the way that we act, what we like, what we don't like in a certain area or country. And so mores are always connected not just to public opinion, like whether you think a certain person or group of people are good or bad, but also connected to things that are more tangible, like social mobility, like who gets hired for what, like what kinds of children we have, like do we allow intermarriage or not? Most of the time when intermarriage is allowed, integration happens much faster. So what you see is this focus in the southern state legislatures on, since they don't have the law anymore to make something like slavery and caste systems so tangible, they decide to aim at mores. They are going to use the law to make sure that black people and white people won't be sitting in the same restaurant. They won't be sitting in the same modes of transportation. They won't be allowed to get married. They won't go to church together. They won't go to school together. They won't receive the same kind of education. And the upshot of all of this, of course, is that integration can't happen. The people who lived in that region would still see African Americans as inferior. African Americans would still be shut out of all modes of social mobility. And any kind of genuine friendship or even civic harmony between the races would be impossible. So it's a clever way of making sure integration doesn't happen. And the reason that this dissent is so important is because this, or not the dissent, I'm sorry, the dissent is important, but right now we're talking about majority opinion. The majority opinion is so important is because, ta-da, now instead of just state legislatures saying this type of caste system is okay, you know, we want to keep the races separate and in that way keep African Americans out of the higher echelons of society. We have the nation, the highest court of the nation saying that. And the way that they say it, I want you to pay careful attention to in the opinion, is that essentially what they're saying is that even after the 14th Amendment, even after the Civil War, things, what matters is not separateness, but whether or not things are equal. And in the opinion of the court, the way that the South is separating blacks and whites from each other is okay because they're receiving equal opportunity and equal access to the experience or content of those things. So you have separate water fountains, that's okay. As long as you still got a water fountain, you're fine. Okay, what ends up happening, of course, what you know and what all of this was meant to ensure is that you have a really crappy water fountain for black people and a really nice one for white people. And it's legitimate, though, because there's still water fountains for both. The dissent is something that's really important as well, because the dissent basically calls out the fact that this is a move that will have tremendous national consequences. It will basically cut off at the knees any sort of real instantiation of what the 14th Amendment is supposed to accomplish for racial minorities. It's a way to basically have that amendment, not repeal it, not have to have your policies and stuff struck down because of it, right? Um, but still have effectual, not just discrimination, but segregation. Um, and some people would say that, with Plessy, what you have is the agreement that uh, we in America will accept slavery under a different name. Okay, and in the dissent, Harlan mentions, right, that this decision is maybe next to Dred Scott, or is like Dred Scott in terms of how critically devastating it will be for civil rights in America. So Plessy kind of, I don't know how to express it any more strongly. It's huge. Um, it it basically is going to undergird an entire way of life. Think about, after African Americans are freed, um, and it looks like they'll be able to participate in the economy. It looks like they'll be able to access education. It looks like they'll be able to have some amount of social mobility. And then what happens? That stops. And the only place to turn to was the court. And the court allowed it. And since the court allowed it, there was nothing to be done except to have another court, a later Supreme Court, undo Plessy. Okay. So, just read carefully and let me know if you have any questions.